And thank you for joining me. I'm Jenna Mara with Vita Therapia, and today joining me is Lisa Dahl with a studio at 68 and Chris Vasiliadis with Priority Wellness. They have a great collaboration story. Why don't you guys share it with us?
Sure, I'll start. I'm Chris. This is Lisa. And we decided to create this workshop, Redesign Eating and Energy for Everyday Living, after being on a panel together at the Metro West Conference for Women last fall. That's how Lisa and I actually met. We were signed on this panel together with a title of our topic was Me Time for Our Time, the Global Ripple Effect of Deep Self-Care. And the panel went so well, we had, I think, standing room only in the room. And Lisa and I both had, and I'm sure our other panelists did too, had several people come up to us afterwards saying, we could have talked about that subject for much longer. We had 45 minutes, I think.
It was fast.
Yeah, and we could have talked another hour or two about self-care and how do we do that today. So then Lisa and I got together afterwards and said, we need to create something. And we're both health coaches. My focus is primarily on energy management. Lisa's focus is primarily on food, and that's how we came up with this idea.
And what's nice is that there's no right or wrong on how women take care of themselves. And that was what was great about our panel, was that we all explored different ways in which we view deep self-care, and it invited other people to explore what's important to them in terms of their self-care. So it was an awesome panel.
Yeah, I remember I actually went to that
session,
and I was so excited when you guys decided to do something together. I was like, can you please have it at my center? So I'm so glad that you're going to be having an event. And the event that you're having is going to be on Saturday, March 30th from 9 a.m. to 12:30 here at Vita Therapia. And I have the information up here at the top. And you can register by going to 30 Eat Energy, which you'll see the link down below. So if you're interested, please sign up before all the seats are gone, because I know that this will book really quickly.
Yeah, people have already started buying tickets. And yeah, and that's off the tiny URL. So it's a tiny URL and then 30 Energy.
Yeah, so if you want to be inspired and learn about deep self-care, you should definitely come to this event. So today our subject of this conversation is to learn more about Lisa and Chris and the great things that they are going to be teaching us during this event, and also individually as well. So one of the things that we look at is the trends that we see in the women's health. So I wanted each of you to kind of talk about the trends that you're seeing and how this concerns both of you in your lives.
So trends that I'm seeing is the prevalency of women on the chronic hamster wheel of chronically doing things. They're always working on that never-ending to-do list, things to do, inside work, outside work for their families. They tend to shelve their own self-care and put that on the back burner, and for a really long time. And even weekends end up getting full. Vacations get postponed. Their own health is getting postponed. And that concerns me because that's not sustainable. And so that's a big concern of mine that I see in today's world. And they think that that's the way it has to be, and they can't see a way out. And one of the things that we'll teach you in this workshop is where you can start to take control and the power you actually do have available to you.
What I'm seeing is that more women are really becoming aware of the choices that they can make. They may not necessarily be making them today. They are looking for more information on how to create a lifestyle and sustainability that does incorporate their overall health. That is nourishing their body, adding movement, removing the diet word, removing the exercise word, and not putting the flag out by saying, oh, I slept for 3 hours and I can do all of this. They're taking a step back and starting to realize that sleep matters, and how they wake up and present the day to themselves is how their children and everybody around themselves looks and views the day, and looks and how they review themselves. So people are starting, and women in particular, are really starting to take that step back and say, we need to make some changes, and they don't have to be drastic. They just can be one small change at a time. So I think people are more ready to partake in improving their overall health and wellness.
I think that's a great point. I think a lot of the people that we run into, especially who come here to the center or out in networking, a lot of them feel burnt out. I know I suffer from it quite a bit, because it's really hard.
It is hard.
It is hard to set aside time for yourself and to really make that a priority. So it's great that you guys are teaching this.
And it's learning that self-care is not a selfish word. And we've become so accustomed to being the thought of taking care of ourselves and putting ourselves first has lost perspective in that by nourishing our bodies and understanding our energy and taking care of ourselves, it allows us to show up at work better, take care of our children, take care of our parents. Wherever we are, we all have the ripple effect of self-care. And by showing up and taking care of ourselves, we have so much more to give, and we're so much more willing to give.
Yeah, and I think I find myself saying this a lot, and I think I might have even said it at the conference. Self-care is sacred, not selfish. And it's so part of my mission is kind of changing that mindset a little bit. And I think for a lot of women, and again, having this conversation at different networking events and what have you, that they're like, yes, I get that conceptually, but I don't know how to do that. And so that's part of this workshop is start to teach you ways that you can start to do that. And whether it's changes you make in, sometimes it's not even adding things, it's changing how you go about do something. It's changing how you're being in a certain situation. That can be a start, because I think a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot by thinking, I don't have time for X, Y, Z. Well, it might not even be that you need to add something. It might just be that you need to shift how you're approaching something. And also taking a step back and evaluating, well, what is on my plate? And does this all really need to be here given what it is I'm trying to do and contribute?
I think that's a good point, because I think when we think about our self-care, we think of it as another thing on our to-do list.
Right.
But if we think of it as a mindset and a way of looking at it like a lens, it's a different way of shifting our focus.
That's exactly it. Is that we're not looking to create another to-do list. We're looking to help women understand how to make those small changes so that they become natural, and that you don't check off the box. You don't say, okay, today I need to do X, Y, Z, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the morning and you're going, oh no, like here's my to-do list and I haven't even looked at what I'm doing for work. How do you implement those small changes and create that balance so that they become natural and normal, and you create that healthy long-term sustainability? And it's done through, energy and how you nourish your body and adding movement and understanding what all those components mean. So it's, a lot of us know what to do. It's just learning how to do it and how to implement it.
So you bring up a great point. So it's all about reframing. So when you're reframing something, when we think about self-care and nutrition, what is your take on reframing the word diet?
So that is one of my favorite things to really talk about. When you talk about diet, you automatically think, it's depleting, it's negative, your body sinks. When you think about the word nourish, what comes to mind? It's typically positive, and you think about it as nurturing. So if you're thinking about nourishing your body, how do you feed and fuel your body so that it brings out the best in you, as opposed to dieting where you're taking away and eliminating? So it's really, a lot of it is mindset and how you think about how do you want to fuel your body? How do you want to nourish it so that you can do all the things that you want to do, as opposed to dieting and you're thinking deprivation. And nourishing your body isn't about deprivation. It is really about understanding what works best for your body and thinking of it as how to make it thrive, how to have that energy, how to show up and do all the things that you want to do, whether it's play with your kids, you have an important meeting. How do you feel good and energized as opposed to weighted and heavy? So by reframing it, it affects your mind, it affects your body, how you stand, how you talk, language is so important, and that dieting is more than just the food and the restrictions and the limitations. It's about creating that lifestyle that nourishes your body to help you grow.
Yeah, and nourish for me, well, there's a couple things. I also agree with 100% with everything Lisa said. If you think about it, diet, what's the first 3 letters in the word diet? Die. That's so negative, first of all. And you know, I wish we had, like, live it should be the word, not diet. But nourish to me is a bigger picture, takes a bigger picture perspective into play, because if we are depleted, one reason could be we're not eating in a way that nourishes ourselves, but we're not fueling ourselves in other ways that nourish ourselves. And that's where the energy piece comes in. How are you fueling yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? And you might not attack all of those buckets at once, but once you have awareness that how you are being in those energetic places is going to affect how well you're nourishing yourself. So I love the view of nourish, because I feel that takes a bigger picture view and a realistic view of how it is that we are able to be in going about our lives and our days.
Absolutely. So when you're thinking about diet, nourish, I mean, if I'm somebody who's listening to this, I'm thinking, but I still have to do something in order to do this. So I still have to make a change. So how does somebody go through the process of making something, of making a change and making it a habit?
So it's really breaking it down into a couple of different components. One is learning to listen to your body. And unfortunately, we probably continue to do this to our children, and how we were raised is that you were told, okay, you have to go to school at 8 o'clock, so you're eating breakfast at 7 o'clock. You are eating lunch at 11:59, or whatever time it was at your school. You came home at 3 o'clock, maybe you had a snack, you didn't have a snack, your parents walked in the door, and dinner was served. Nobody asked you if you were hungry. You looked at a clock and you were told to eat. Nobody, when you're eating, our parents wanted to make sure that we weren't starving, and everybody said, well, do you need one more bite? And we lost our abilities to listen to our bodies. So taking a step back without even looking at what you're eating, it's beginning with some basic information on reconnecting with your body and understanding hunger, understanding physical hunger versus emotional hunger, understanding what it's like to eat until you're full and not stuffed, and the tools on how to get there. And for most of us, we're very fortunate that food is not an emergency for us. And we've all become so acquired or accustomed to having that quick fix of food. And sometimes it does take a little bit of change in learning to be present and just a little bit uncomfortable with what hunger actually feels like, because we have food in front of us 24 hours a day. And we have lost that ability to understand the difference between, you know, TV ads and billboards and walking into your pantry. And our environment has so much more to do with it than we even think. What do your cabinets and cupboards look like? So it's really getting back to environmental and body cues without even looking at your food. And we do get into that part of it. That's not going to be the main focus on our workshop. It's important to think about what it is that you can do today. What small, tiny steps that you can start to implement without going into counting calories and weighing and measuring all of your food. There's better ways to go about doing it. And depending on what your goals are, will determine exactly what is the best path for you. There is no best diet for anybody. And it goes back to what is the best way to nourish your body. So we really talk about what does food, what do those food, how does food play out in what you're doing and eating, and how it affects your environment, your relationship with food, and we kind of talk about those kinds of things.
Awesome. Yeah, and on the habit change question, in terms of what makes it so challenging, what I find is people aren't prepared for how uncomfortable it's going to be when they start doing something differently. And so what I typically set people's expectations on is there's brain science involved. A lot of people say, oh, I just need to work harder, or I just need to bring willpower in. And that's willpower is a tiny slice of what's going on. If you've been on this planet for 4 decades or more, you've got 4 decades of neural pathways that have been etched in your brain. So when you try to do something different, your brain is going to rebel because it doesn't get that, oh no, this is how we do things. Oh no, we're doing something different. I often bring it up, I equate it to training a new puppy. It doesn't understand how to do its business right away. You have to repeat the behavior over and over and over again. And it's the same thing with us as human beings. If we know we want to make a change, we don't just do it once and it sticks. We need to do it over and over and over again. And some habits take longer than others. But I find a lot of people give up before the habit sticks because I just can't do it. I don't have enough willpower. And again, it's not willpower at all. So I think going into it, understanding, okay, this is going to, am I really committed, number one? And if you're committed, understand that it's going to require repeat behavior. It is going to feel uncomfortable. And knowing that going in, figure out ways, okay, so when I get uncomfortable, what am I going to do? What's a healthy way for me to respond to that? Whether it's a diet change, whether it's a change in how you're managing your energy, whether it's a boundary that you need to set. It's not going to stick right away. I tell people all the time, you will fall off the wagon. And I don't say that to be a Debbie Downer, but just say, like, that's what happens. It's habit change.
And that goes into the nourishing in the diet world, is that it is practice and consistency, and it doesn't have to be 100%. 80% is really okay, and it eliminates that all or nothing mindset, so that if you start your day and you eat a great breakfast and then you go into work and there's a tray of donuts, and all of a sudden you've eaten one donut, you think, my day's shot. Like, now I might as well just eat my way through until midnight because I'm done. The reality is that if that's your 20% for your day, then you're still okay, because it's not all or nothing, and you haven't fallen off of your diet because you're eating and your relationship with food is always going to be there. And the restriction creates all those food rules, which creates that all or nothing mindset, which sets you up for failure. And by learning to be okay with not being perfect, it gives you a lot of freedom to be able to make choices that work best for you. And that one bite of something or one full donut doesn't define or wreck your entire day. It just make it right with your next bite. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Love that. Make it right for your next bite.
That's a great thing. That's a really good soundbite.
Yeah.
And the other thing is when you're creating new habits, it's about creating new habits, not necessarily focusing on breaking the old habits. And how do you create something based on something you already do? So tying it with something that is an okay thing, that's part of your everyday, what can you do? How can you make that connection so that it starts to flow and become common? So somebody who, right after you brush your teeth, you're going to put your socks and sneakers on, you're going to go for a walk. How do you combine something that you already do with something new? And it's just keeping those things really small, and everybody small starts at someplace different. And it's meeting the client or our participants where they're at and helping them figure out what their next steps are, because everybody's next steps are so different.
That's true. And I think that's something that everybody has to keep in mind. And then when they're thinking about whether or not they should come to this event, what value they could gain from learning all these different things that they could put into play. That's not something that they have to do right at the second, but they're little jewels that they could take with them that they could slowly implement.
Indeed. And they're going to get, Lisa and I are going to share our time. One of us will speak first I'll speak on the energy piece, Lisa will speak on the food piece. So you'll have a lot of information, but then we're going to pull that all together in a wellness vision. We'll have an exercise at the end where you'll create a wellness vision that is yours and yours alone. So you get to decide what you want to claim for yourself for your health and wellness. My definition of health and wellness might be completely different from Lisa's, might be completely different from yours, Jenna. And so it's really, I think for the first time for a lot of women, they even make the time to even consider that, what that means to them. And it'll be nice because this is a women's only workshop. Everyone who's coming is going to be in the same mind space. So you'll be around like-minded people. And so you'll have the support and camaraderie of not only two health coaches, but other women who are in the place of wanting to do something to re-elevate their energy and how they're eating.
And we've been there ourselves.
Yeah.
We are not coming from the lens of this is the way that it's done.
Correct.
This is, I think we both bring our own personal experience and then our education. And I think we've seen it from all different spaces and places at different times in our lives.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this sounds fabulous. I cannot wait to see what happens at the event. And again, that's redesigning your eating and energy for everyday health. So thank you again, Lisa and Chris, for joining me, and thank you for watching. I will post all the information down below in the comments. If you're curious about joining them on the 30th, please feel free to buy a ticket. We can't wait to see you, and thank you again.
Thank you.